to see some folks from across the country. My name is Alexandra Barlow. I'm the VP Programs here at CFIN, Canadian Food Innovation Network, which that title means that I run our funding programs, both regional as well as national programs, and work to help the food sector address one of the biggest barriers to innovation, development, and adoption, which is always capital or cash or the dollars behind everything. So just a reminder, if you're joining us and you missed my spiel before, welcome to use the chat and say hello to the community. Love when people do that. If you want to ask me questions, if things are unclear for you, please do post the question. I'm happy to answer them. Put it in the Q&A. Do not put it in the chat. I will not find it in the chat. So put it in the Q&A and I will make sure that there's time at the end to address them. And if I can't address it today live, if you put a question in the QA at the end of the session, I can find your email and your question and make sure you get responded to. So that's the best way to make sure that we address any questions you might have. So today we're doing an info session on our Winter 2026 Innovation Scouting Fund. And so before I launch in, if you are new to us, a little bit about CFIN. We're a national organization. We're really focused on growing food manufacturing, food service, and food retail businesses. And we're really here to play, a threefold role. I'd say first is around connection. We're here to help you matchmake and meet collaborators, research partners, maybe even customers through the network. We're here to help you problem solve and try and see if we can address some of your barriers to innovation through our member services and our regional innovation director team. And then we also, of course, offer funding. And that's really where my work focuses and what we'll be talking about today. We're here to champion food innovation. It's a big tent. There's a lot of different areas how innovation is really shaping the food supply chain. And we're seeing everything from food manufacturing technologies right through to apps that let you take a picture of your food and tell you, how many carbs you're eating, right through to healthy for you ingredients, restaurant delivery, robots, etc. So big gamut of what we cover and look at. We have almost 8,000 members across Canada, and we're coming up on our 5th birthday. And we believe that we'll be hitting 20,000 members in the next few years because it's obviously as we all look to, supply more Canadian food in our diets, support our Canadian businesses, but also make sure that we're addressing productivity challenges and being as competitive as possible on the global stage. Innovation is a big piece of that. And so we're focused on the many different ways we can solve those problems through innovation. We have sort of 3 core functions. So as I mentioned, we have regional innovation directors. So, there's a lot of members across Canada, but we do have people in each core market. So we have 5 of them who can help you find partners, address challenges, maybe get connected to resources, and are often a good source of advice. We have Yodel. I'm repping some Yodel swag today. That's our digital space, our sort of innovation playground, where you can look for resources, connect with members of the sector, ask questions, and basically leverage your industry peers. And then lastly, of course, we offer unique funding opportunities where we're looking to drive food innovation forward, build collaboration, and hopefully deliver really good economic benefits. And some of those benefits, at the 5-year mark Last year, we recorded that over 21,000 end users have adopted CFIN innovations. So that could be, again, I'm scanning my food with a CFIN funded app, and it could also be I'm integrating novel food ingredients into my product mix and making my product more competitive, both with consumers and in grocery retail. CFIN funded innovations last year generated $23 million in revenues. And our funding directly contributed to over 366 jobs created, and we've awarded 23.3 million in funding to date across 110 projects. And we've been creating new intellectual property, whether that's a patent right through to trade secrets, and we've got well over 300 of those. If you're not a member, and I assume and I hope many of you are, but I encourage you to become a member. Part of being a network comes from the strength and diversity of the members who come to the table, joined under this sort of mutual aim of growing each food business to its full capability in Canada. And part of that is making sure that the sector is, kind of all rowing in the same direction, but also aware of some of the great Canadian companies and solutions that we have here to food sector challenges. And our Innovation Scouting Fund is really about CFIN going out to innovators with a partner. And what we do is our partner comes on board. They're from our membership, and they are a leader in either food processing, distribution, food service, or grocery retail. They say, CFIN, we have the following business challenges and we want to solve them with Canadian innovations. Help us find Canadian innovations from our startups, our established companies, as well as our academic researchers across Canada. Tell them what our priorities are, and then we'll together, CFIN and the partner, will review those applications and we'll pick the top one, and CFIN will then provide that applicant funding to work with the partner. So if you've come to this call today because you have a project in mind and you've got a partner and someone ready to trial it, this is maybe not the call for you, because this is a call where there is someone behind this call, and I'm going to explain a little bit of information on who they are. There is a sponsor behind this call who is your test bed, who is your pilot partner. And so you are pitching to them your innovation. So keep that in mind. I'm going to go through their priorities. I'm going to give you a little bit of information about who they are, but keep in mind you're pitching. The scouting program is the opportunity to pitch to those large players in the sector and demonstrate how your solution fits the priorities that they've outlined for the call. As I noted, the aim of scouting is to bring forward small and medium-sized enterprises, startups, or even academic researchers who are here in Canada, who are developing Canadian homegrown solutions to sector problems. And that applicant has to become a CFIN member. And membership is free. So you can go ahead and Jaleh is posting in the chat the link to access that. If you're a not-for-profit or a Crown Corp or government department, generally you're not eligible to receive CFIN funding, so you're probably not going to be an applicant to this, but you may have people in your ecosystem who are. So to qualify for funding under this call, you've got to fit in one of the priority areas that we're going to talk about today. You have to be doing, as part of the project, R&D for technology readiness levels of 3 to 7, and I'll explain what those are in a second. We're looking for intellectual property or innovations that are Canadian. So if you have licensed the greatest technology from the Netherlands and you're bringing it to Canada, it's not eligible. We want Canadian solutions to these challenges. And we're hopefully ideally looking for projects that will be complete within 1 year. And we have some other specific requirements to each call to be met. And I will go through this specific winter call and what we're looking for in a second. But to apply to this, you really want to be either with an SME, a startup, or an academic research institution as a start point. Scouting is generally looking for a solution where you've achieved at least a TRL, a technical readiness level of 3. And if you're not familiar with the scale, I really recommend getting used to it and investigating it a little bit and thinking about where you're located because it's a very common term, not only in funding, but in sort of innovation and tech development. And you're going to hear it probably from more groups than just CFIN. So a TRL of 3 is you have an initial offering. Stakeholders like what you've sort of put together, and you've validated that, it aligns with some of their needs, at a high level. What we're looking and hoping to help you do through this project is go from a small scale prototype, do some lab testing, to hopefully testing it in our partners' operations. And so that sort of TRL 4, 5, 6 is really what we're working on, and ideally that you'll get to a 7. If you're at a 6 today and you've done some testing, that's great. If you're at 7, that's also great. You're welcome to apply, but you need to be at least a 3. If you've got something that's already fully commercially deployed and it's ready to go in market, it's probably not quite a fit here because we do want something, that is still in development. Our partners looking to be at the cusp of sort of emerging innovation. But you're welcome to chat with me via email if you think you're more at a TRL of 9, but there's a fit and we can see what we can do to help you. So when we look at proposing our early stage innovations, sometimes we get a little nervous about intellectual property. Who am I telling my secrets to when I submit my application? First, I want you to know that when you submit an application to us, I don't need to know, the exact details or a design behind a patent or an IP related solution. I need to know what it does and how it solves a problem, but I don't need to know exactly how it does that in the nittiest, the deepest of details. That's not relevant, that deep for us. So you shouldn't, when submitting an application to us, have to be divulging critical intellectual property details. But I want you to know that any intellectual property that is developed with its funding, with our funding, is not, it is yours. So CFIN does not take any ownership. We're certainly curious about whether or not you're going to protect it. That's very important to us. We're curious about whether or not you're going to commercialize it. That's very important to us. The call sponsor is also not going to take any interest in your intellectual property in the sense that if you develop it and then pilot it with them as part of our agreement, they don't have any ability to say, hey, we own that as a result of this. Protecting your IP is an eligible expense in your budget in this application. So if you want to put some money in to make sure you've got some good legal advice, you're welcome to do so. And as I mentioned, that can even extend into, hey, I want to develop an IP agreement between the sponsor, myself as a part of this, because I'm going to be doing something with their data, and there are some concerns there that we probably each want to work out. So those are the sorts of things we can consider, and some of the important, I think, key details around intellectual property when it comes to this program. So this call has some specific priorities and parameters, and what we're doing is soliciting solutions that align with those priorities. Then the applications will go through a scoring process with our sponsor, and we will provide support to the winning project, which will be 60% of eligible costs in your budget, up to $75,000 maximum. The total project cost should be between $20,000 and $125,000. And you've got to provide the matching funds. So it should be generally from your own contributions. Um, so this is really a chance to do a lower cost pilot with a potential long-term partner or customer. And so you do have to have some skin in the game. And we have funding to support 1 to 2 projects in total. So we're not going to be selecting 30 of you, likely 1 to 2 of the best scoring submissions, depending on how much money each of you are asking for. There we go. So just a note on what costs are eligible. Generally, CFIN will cover labor for technical employees working directly on the project. So, their time spent on those technical activities. We'll cover contractors and consultants. We'll cover the materials. So if you need to build a unit or order a batch, of your product or your ingredient, we'll cover that. We'll cover equipment that is directly required for project activities and budgeted in the application. And then other direct costs, things like software, travel costs, shipping expenses generally fall into our other direct costs. And as part of your submission, you will be asked to sketch out a budget. I know that, we're going to get into the partner. And so you're kind of submitting not necessarily 100% knowing all the full details. So sometimes the budgeting can be challenging. Put forward your best guess and the best plan you can around, what do you need in order to then do a pilot for someone within our budget allowances. We will, with the winning projects, take time prior to contracting to give you a chance to, you're going to be meeting with the call sponsor and then have the ability to ask them questions and make sure, refine your budget before it goes to contracting. Things we won't pay for. So indirect or overhead costs. So your hydro, your office rent, etc. Really early stage R&D activities where the TRL is earlier than TRL 3. Security or safety certifications, things like TSSA certifications, food safety consultants are not eligible. Alcohol or unreasonable travel expenses. We have a travel expense policy. So I probably, we won't be covering your first class flight to the partner's location, for example. The cost of a consultant to prepare your application or claims, that's not eligible. And anything just generally that isn't outlined in your original project budget without us actually considering an amendment and what those expenses would be and then giving you approval. So stacking, often get this question. Perhaps you want to use a MyTax grant, or you want to have IRAP support some of the expenses, etc. You may go and get stacking. However, consider that we're giving 60% and that you're not allowed to secure more than 75% of eligible project costs from other government programs. And we have in our budget, there's a table where you can enter other support and get your numbers and see if you're exceeding the 75%. And if you are looking at stacking, then you're welcome to contact us. We'll have our email at the end and you can continue a conversation with us about that. Things like filing for SR&ED, getting banking financing, that's not stacking. Stacking is another government grant supporting the expense. So if you're going to go get another grant-related program to support this project, we just want to watch the overall levels to make sure that we're not going beyond the stacking. So, going to dive into the application process and then into the call priorities. And I've seen a few questions popping up. We're going to have lots of time for them. So happy to take those as we get towards the end. Just to note that first, all of our programs are competitive. Submitting an application does not guarantee funding. We take our applications through an online portal. which I will show you briefly at the end of the call after questions, until the advertised date of closure for the intake at midnight local time. And the application portal does allow you to submit supplemental documents like letters of support, quotes, cost proposals, or other documentation. For example, if you've got an ingredient and you've done initial sensory testing and you've got the results of that, or the nutritional research that you've done on your ingredient, or anything like that, please add those to the application. There are 4 questions to the submission. The word counts are limited. And, so your opportunity to sort of add context to your responses, is within the supplementals. I do highly recommend you also use the full word count on each question. I can pretty much guarantee you from previous rounds and applications that 30-word answers in your submission, in your application, or not using the full word count will not bode well for your chances of approval. As a requirement, we do ask generally for 2 years financials to be submitted with your application. Some of you are early stage businesses and you can't meet this requirement. So we will accept a term sheet, a bank statement, or other documentation that you might have that demonstrates your financial position. A letter sort of stating or showing that you have the balance of the request is the bare minimum. You can bet that if we can't quite tell that, we're going to be reaching out for clarification. Your financial documentation is for CFIN just to check that you are a going concern only. They are not shared with the call sponsor. It's just for us to validate as sort of stewards of public dollars that you have the capacity to hold up your end of the project. And because, a fair bit of work goes into preparing all these and then reviewing them and selecting them. And so it can be a real heartbreaker if we come to an approval and it turns out that the project is not really able to proceed because of financial capability. Providing that proof of financial capability does not guarantee that your application will be approved. It's just part of the requirements that we need from you. So there are 4 questions under the scouting application, and I'm going to go into them at the end as well and talk to you about where you can sort of strengthen your answers and how to answer them. But the scoring breaks down to 4 things. Is your solution addressing a real problem? Does it actually align with the call priorities? And have you given an idea of what the measurable impact would be for an adopter of your technology or your ingredient? So if you have something that is going to lower sodium in a product, can you quantify what that reduction might be without impacting taste? And can you provide us a bit of an understanding around what's the actual value proposition behind your solution? Then, does the organization have the human financial stability and capability to sort of execute on the pilot without risk of failure? Do you have the right people around you? If you're telling me that you have to build a unit, have you thought about who's going to do that for you? What are the resources and capabilities that you're bringing to the table? And are you able to execute, financially on this project, even with CFIN's support? Do you have, the ability to do reporting? Are you able to bridge expenses, things of that nature? Does the applicant clearly articulate the operational conditions, resources, and technical prerequisites required to successfully test the solution? And this will include your budget and work plan. So we want to know, if you believe that your ingredient's going to reduce salt, what do you need in order to test your solution? Are you going to be providing 25-pound cases to run on a pilot line or to be tested in our partner's lab as they reformulate products? Are you going to be looking for them to provide you with a recipe so that you can do some bench scale tinkering and then provide them with the ingredient to their QA teams to do some solution assessment with as well. What's your ideal approach here? Um, and then lastly, is the solution distinct from existing options and is it legally viable for the Canadian food sector? We are open to applications where your product might be a novel ingredient and not yet have full regulatory approval, but how long is that regulatory approval away? Do you have a solution that's actually novel? Can you showcase how people are already solving this problem if it exists today and how your solution is different or better? Those are the sorts of things we're looking for in that particular question. And so your full proposal will include a completed application template with these 4 questions responded to, your budget and work plan template, which will be part of the submission as well, and then any attachments that you are including that you believe support the proposal. I'm just going to take a quick look at the Q&A here. I see a couple, so I'm just going to go here to the questions just before I dive into the partner. Someone's asking, can we do our intellectual property protection in several countries and our costs accepted? Generally, we will do either your Canadian protection or the legal costs for you to come to a IP protection agreement with our partner. So I'm probably not going to pay for your full intellectual property strategy. And there are other programs that will do that, and we're happy to refer you to those. But we're probably not going to be doing a full-fledged IP protection strategy as part of your project. So hopefully that answers your question. Someone asks, are international consultants allowed or subcontractors, who are international? Yes. It will be interesting to see why you need that. If it's just, the only testing that, who could support this project is outside of Canada, then perhaps that's fine. We do ask you in the budget if the subcontractor is Canadian or not. But yes, we can allow international expenses as part of this project. Someone's also asking, is the stacking consideration on federal grants or all grants? The stacking consideration is generally on all grant funding, not just federal programs. And so it would impact if you're getting money from Ontario just as much from the federal government. So it's 75% from all grants. Someone's asked if the whole call is only available to fund 1 or 2 projects. Correct. So we have budget to support 1 to 2 projects in this call, and that's it. So we're not picking 30 of you. We're likely picking 1 to 2. These last ones here, I'll target towards the end. I do see one here I will just answer, and it says, should the pilot program co-partner for the CFIN grant be in Ontario? So just to reiterate, we have a partner for this program, and I'm about to launch in and tell you all about them. So just so you know, we're going to get into that now. If you are coming to this project and you're thinking, I got to go find a partner, or my partner is going to be so excited about this, I already have a partner. So CFIN is partnering with a large Canadian food company to issue this call. So by applying to this call, you are applying to work with our call sponsor, and they are going to consider your application as a partner. So if you tell me in your application, I want to work with, Dare Cookies in Kitchener, that's great, but that's not what this call's for. So you're in the wrong place if you have a project where you already have a partner. Not a good program for you. We have a partner at the table, and they've sponsored this call, and I'll tell you a little bit more about them. So our call sponsor has chosen to remain confidential. So their exact name and identity is not being released. What we can share is that they are a large Canadian food company. They work in prepared vegetable-based products and frozen appetizers. They operate high volume manufacturing. They're a large firm. They're very interested in this sustainable manufacturing, in advanced preservation tools, and novel product formats. And they're really looking at sort of that combo of fast and nutritious, and really looking for solutions that allow vegetables to be delivered in complex, multi-textured formats, so crispy, coated, stuffed. And they're looking for applicants who, could be prepared to deploy solutions in a large scale production environment. So, hopefully that gives you some good information. If you have a solution that's really not about frozen appetizers or has little to no relevance to vegetable-based products or even advanced manufacturing, it's probably not the call for you. So this is in the call priorities document. Everything I'm about to cover now is in the call priorities document. So, take this forward in your consideration about the fit of this program. Overall, call eligibility. We're looking for human food applications. This is not a pet food manufacturer sponsoring this call. So your animal health or your beauty or your cosmetic applications, not interested. We're not interested in branded products. So if you've got the next best appetizer and you want to sell it under Alex's, or hors d'oeuvres, not eligible. So they're looking at ingredients, processes, or technologies that our partner can integrate into their business and pay you as a supplier. We're not really interested in doing clinical trials. We're looking for at least a TRL of 3, and we're looking that you're going to be demonstrating this solution. And we're okay if you're not necessarily 100% ready to commercialize today, but we're certainly interested in what your path is to commercialization, because if you're successful and you've got a great solution, you're going to have a customer here who's eager to take advantage of and work with you. And we're looking for items that are safe for consumption under Canadian food regulations. If it's a novel ingredient, you're welcome to apply. But, what does your application for Health Canada approval look like? What's your timeline? Those are going to be questions you can expect to answer with the partner. So our priority areas, you must align with one of these priority areas in order to be eligible. Do not apply if they are not relevant to you and your innovation. Our first one is under next generation processing and preservation. So as I mentioned, we've got a partner here who is a global leader in prepared foods. They're very aware of consumer shifts away from ultra processed, and they want to protect their core portfolio by finding new ways to cook and preserve food that's cleaner and healthier for the consumer. So we're looking for technologies that allow us to move away from the fryer. If you have a technology that can crisp without submerging in hot oil, maybe using electric fields, radio frequency, who knows? Certainly we want to hear from you. We're also looking for seed oil alternatives. This isn't just about replacing, palm oil or other sort of more problematic ingredients. It is about finding stable, high-performance fats, things, for example, like fermentation-derived or even novel plant sources that can handle high heat and provide the necessary mouthfeel without the negative sort of perspectives that sometimes are associated with seed oils. So here, key areas of interest, as I said, non-thermal preservation, non-frying cooking methods, and seed oil alternatives. Then we get into novel formats and textural experiences. So, when we're looking at the intersection between fast and nutritious, we're often targeting children and young eaters. And so we're looking for fun food. And through that, fun shapes is a big piece on this. So how can we use tech to create unique 3D shapes and manufacture them at scale? How can we do more with leafy green solutions into appetizing structural shapes to make sure that we're really putting forward plant forward projects or products? And we're also looking for things where we can give different textures. So co-extrusion or layering, where we can get that sort of gooey, melty, crispy, stuffed type solutions. Uh, and then also interested in what kind of microwavable innovations you might have. What can we have in terms of pouches or other items that retain texture and give us good performance through that cooking method? Uh, Functional flavor. Like many, this partner has aggressive goals around sodium reduction across their appetizer portfolio. They can't sacrifice taste. The brand is built on being delicious. So we're not just looking for salt substitutes. We're looking for flavor enhancers. Can we help trick the palate into perceiving saltiness or use sort of that mouthfulness to compensate for low sodium? Can we add nutrition density? So a seasoning blend that might have fiber or protein, but maybe still tastes, kind of like a cheat day type product. So we're looking for solutions where we can differentiate with nutrition. So do you have flavor that doubles as nutrient delivery? We're looking for sodium reduction with a clean label. And we're looking for flavor modulation. So, as perhaps if you're working in the plant-based space, sometimes there are off notes in plant-based ingredients. How can we help mask that? How can we drive better savory or umami profiles in food products? Also of great interest for this partner. And now we get out of, I'd say, products and get more focus into, actual packaging and process. So smart and active packaging. So, again, we're all moving or looking to move into more recyclable packaging. And we're kind of always getting into the bit of the trade-off where, sustainable materials don't always offer food safe, sort of functionality. So key things are, what kind of solutions can we have around edible or dissolvable packaging, if any? What kind of coatings or materials can we put on packaging to ensure food remains crispy, maybe during delivery or even after it's being prepared in a microwave? And can we do anything in food service or delivery applications where we might get some better retention of heat and things like that? And then lastly, smart manufacturing and digital quality. So, always with high volume manufacturers looking for technologies that allow us to stop bad product before it gets to the line. So, specifically looking at internal defect detection. Uh, all looking at systems where we can deploy them in line. We're looking at ways that we can harmonize processes through digital twins, advanced sensors that let us connect the manufacturing line from start to finish. And then, of course, opportunities around AI and analytics and product predictive models and how they can be used to drive quality assurance. So those are the priorities. So when you apply, you will select one of these priorities, and then it's your job throughout the submission to, ensure that those are addressed and that you're aligning with that. If you fit with more than one, pick the one that is the closest. You can certainly in your answers indicate that, your ingredient also offers some shelf life improvements or allows it to perform better in a microwave. So you can choose the one that fits best and speak to the other priorities as well. When you are completing your application, in each of the questions, you have your opportunity to give, a strong answer to put your best foot forward. And I've just kind of outlined here a little bit, what would that look like? So these questions aren't in order. We're just showing you sort of how you can address each question. So around your solution and what your competitive advantage is, these three questions, question one, two, and five, you have the opportunity in one to just select the priority. And as I said, don't shoehorn your solution. If you fit two, pick the one where you're the strongest. Your question two, we're looking to understand, what pain point do you solve? How does the science work? And what metrics will improve? And be specific. Don't give us a lot of words that don't mean anything. Tell us what the technology is and what the actual problem is for the provider. Coming in, for example, and saying, our product utilizes food waste and we're addressing the $59 billion a year lost from food waste. That's not really specific or driving at the real problem. We all know that's a problem, but this partner and food manufacturers generally have more specific challenges. They've articulated some of their priorities. Make sure you're giving us some KPIs that really drive at the problem. So we'd love to see numbers. So if you think that, you can reduce sodium by 20% or you can extend shelf life by 4 days, say so and give us those numbers. And then in Q5, we want to know, how is your solution better than the status quo? If you're coming from another sector, how are you pivoting? We want to know your regulatory. And if you are be honest about it. Let us know what your pathway is for approval. Know your competition. If there are existing competing solutions that are commercialized, I can tell you that this partner is very savvy and has a ton of capacity on their innovation team. They probably know about it, and they will be quite direct as they assess your solution if you don't have an answer as to why yours is better. So knowing your competition helps you strongly in that particular question. And then the other part of the scoring is around this, your resources and the project. And so from a Q4 for pilot requirements, we want to know, what are you trying to get to with this pilot? Do you want to put a unit in and prove that it works at X pieces a minute? What do you need to run? Do you need data? Do you need their formulation for their product? Do you need their QA team? What would you need to put this in their plant or test it? If you think that you have a sense of what some of the effort would be of a partner that you'd work with, you can outline that. And we'd love to know the risks. What could go wrong? How have you thought about that? And again, here, be realistic. State it clearly what you need to, do this project. Categorize your needs and, across different categories. If you happen to know this, be as specific as possible. And then lastly, on the organizational resources, who's executing this pilot? Who are the suppliers and partners you have around you? Can you manage a financial model? We want to see that you have the ability to execute on this. Before I go into a demo, I am going to go into the questions. So where are we at? We've got 15 minutes now. I'm going to dive into some questions. I encourage you to post more. And what I'll do as our finishing movement is go ahead and take you through our application process and the actual system that we use. Someone's asked, and I don't quite 100% understand this, but it says, does AI and analytics, must it follow a predictive model as the core of its business, or can it assist in smart packaging? If you have a solution from another category and you have a packaging solution that integrates AI and analytics, you're welcome to put forward a project under packaging that has an AI component. So hopefully that clarifies. Um, Someone's asked a question about the call priorities. Is it only for salt reduction, or are other flavor modulators of interest like sweetness? This partner primarily plays in the appetizer space, so I would say their interests are more under salt or just general cost reduction. But I would say that they're probably not super interested in a sweet profile based on their product mix. Someone's asking, are the partner companies interested in using plant-based protein for developing products for human consumption? And so the answer is yes. So they've identified that as a priority. They are, obviously given the huge interest at the moment in increasing both protein and flavors and fiber in products. They're interested in integrating plant-based proteins, but they do have the off flavor challenge. I wouldn't say it's their number one every single day concern, but they're certainly looking at their product mix and how they can integrate those products successfully. Um, Someone's asking, would technology that creates fibrous textures using vegetables be in line with the partner's priorities? Maybe. You would, certainly can pitch that. I'm not sure. At the end of the day, they will assess these submissions. And if the technology changes the texture of vegetables and enhances their nutrition, yes, that sounds like it's very much so in line with their interests. So hopefully that clarifies for you. Um, Someone's asking, can you clarify the ingredient aspect of the innovation? Does it need to have a technology connection? So if you're proposing a novel ingredient, um, so you've created a new ingredient and you're pitching that to them, then the ingredient is the novel solution. It doesn't need to have a technology connection. So when CFIN looks at innovation in food, we're often looking at both ingredients and technology might be software, it might be hardware, it might be equipment. So those are the types of things we fund, ingredients, software, hardware, equipment, and you can have an ingredient. It doesn't need to have a tech component, but it's usually novel. Pitching to me to use a well-known, well-commercialized ingredient to solve the salt problem is not an innovative solution. Someone's asking for academic institutions. How do we show the financials? It's noted in the guide and in the application that you are not required to upload that. It would be helpful to have a letter from your research center quantifying that the lab or the research center has their own budget and the ability to cover the project. Someone also asked, is project management an eligible expense? Generally, we're covering technical labor on a project. So if it's a technical project management function, then yes. If by project management you mean my finance person's time submitting claims, then no, that part is not eligible. So hopefully that helps. Um, Someone's asking if they're a pre-revenue company, are they eligible to apply? Yes, you are eligible to apply. We generally ask that you have at least 1 year of incorporation, and as I take you through the application process, you'll see that. Um, if you're getting into really, some people here are asking very specific questions about their projects. I would suggest I'll finish going through the session and show you how to use our system, and then you can send us an email if you've got really specific questions around your project. The last question someone's asking is, how much personal funds we should provide to be eligible for the program. So we'll provide up to 60% of your budget. If you don't have 40% of what you're proposing, either from another program or from money in your business, then I would suggest you probably don't have the financial capacity to undertake this project. So, you've got to show either that you've got investment or some personal cash to be able to carry out the activity. And that's the kind of documentation that we'd be looking for under the financial documentation. So generally we ask for 2 years financials as a standard, but because we fund early stage companies, you might not have that. And so you can provide other documentation, which I discussed earlier in this presentation, but you can also read the program guide and check it out there. So I'm going to take us through a quick share on how to apply for this program. So first and foremost, you need to become a CFIN member. If you're not a CFIN member, cfin-rcia.ca, click join as a member up at the top, and then we will activate you on our application portal. And this is the application portal that I'm sharing with you right now. The application portal, as I mentioned earlier, you can access this in English or in French. And to change the language, you just select up here. I'm going to log in and just show you what it looks like when you apply. For the first time that you've come here, if you have just become a member, if you try to sign in and it doesn't work, you can click forgot password and reset your access. But just give us 24 hours or so after you become a member because it takes a bit to get you mapped over. Oh, well, that's not good. Just give me 1 second. There we go. That's better. So when you log in, this is what it will look like. You can go under organization profile and update your, information here so that your address, and maybe I'll say ingredient manufacturer. You can put a little bit of information about yourself. This pulls into the application, so I recommend updating that as a first piece. Then I go back to home. I can see open programs here. And this is where I can go and submit applications. So today we're talking about the Ontario Innovation Scout or the Innovation Scouting Fund. So this top option here. And I'm going to go click on apply now. As part of the application, we will ask you 3 eligibility questions. The first is, have you been incorporated for at least a year? We generally want you to be incorporated for at least a year before applying to this. If you're an academic researcher, then you can just answer yes. Obviously, your institution's been around for a while. If you're very, very new and you don't meet this requirement, you're welcome to email us. But often I would just note it gets hard meeting some of the financial requirements if you're very, very new. Then we say, does your technology have its primary application in the post-farm gate value chain? We're not here to fund agriculture or farming related innovations. So if you're pitching to me a new solution to grow kale, our partner's not interested in that. So here, having an answer to that question is quite important. So hopefully you'll say yes. And, we're looking for innovation. So we want you to be developing or proving new processes, products. We do not really want a new protein bar to be pitched. So, you'll answer that question and submit eligibility. And it will say, oh, your eligibility is confirmed and you can proceed to the application. And then once you're in the application, this can be saved at any time. And when you come back to it, it will be available to you. So we'll say test. So you'll put in your title, description, start, end date, whether or not who's the primary contact. You're going to put information about your business. You're going to answer the application questions, all 4 of them. Then you've got your budget, and how you complete the budget is you open this table, and it's very important when you're working in here, complete these things by adding a line. So I'll just say labor, and we'll say $10,000 and $10,000. Leave that and then just go yes. And then when you save this, close it, save here, and it will update the budget as it shows up here and pull in whatever you've put in. And you will complete each table including the work plan. You've got to complete all the pieces under here and have them showing up to be eligible. And then your application files, so you can submit supporting documentation as I discussed here, and then you can upload your financials here, and then you will accept the terms and conditions of the project, sign off, and press submit. You can save draft at any time. If you've got to go, you're just starting and working on this now, feel free. If you go back to home, you will find it under in progress. So don't go back here and start a new one. Your application will be in progress until you submit it. Once it's submitted, it will go here. And once you've had a response, whether it's positive or negative, it will be here. And then you always have access to it. So that's what the system looks like. And hopefully that gives you a good sense of just the basics of accessing that platform. Within that system, you can find the call guide and the program guide as well, which covers all the information that we've gone over here today. And with that, I'm going to go check out the Q&A for one last time. If you do have any further questions, I'll take a minute to answer them because we've got 3 minutes left. But I do want to say, hard in this format to answer your specific question about your innovation. You're welcome to email us and we will respond the best we can, and give you a sense of, any clarifications that we can offer. But I do recommend, as your first step, as I mentioned, 1, become a CFIN member if you're not one. 2, read the program guide or watch this session when it's posted. It is being recorded and it will be shared on the website, so you can watch it again later. And read the call priorities guide. So it goes over everything I put here and gives some context, and hopefully, again, giving those things a quick review and then considering your responses within the submission should position you the best for a good outcome. So back to the Q&A. Someone says, would non-cash and kind contributions be considered as company investment in the project? Interesting. So CFIN will fund any expense that you get billed for that is related to this project. So whether you're paying someone for their labor as a T4 employee or as a subcontractor, we will pay, if you have cloud data processing costs, Amazon Web Services or other expenses, and they are directly related to your project, then yes, we will also pay 60% of those. So we don't really do in kind. If you're fronting a cost that we think is eligible and relevant for the project, we'll give you 60% of that based on providing us documentation that supports that cost. Someone says, if we are co-packing our product at a facility, does that apply? So if you are, I'm not sure I understand the question, but if you need to have your product produced at a co-packing site in order to provide samples to our sponsor, or to provide batches of your ingredient for testing, then yes, that could apply very well there. And I think that's it on all the other questions. There's a few there that are a bit more specific, I'd say, in terms of the call. So I think at this point, I will note, happy to continue the conversation, excited to have launched this call. Really look forward to hearing about the innovations that come across our table. As I mentioned, this will be posted and shared online. The intake is open, and you have quite a bit of runway to apply. And we're happy to support you as you go ahead and access the system and begin your submission. And you're welcome to reach out to us if you have any further questions. So thank you so much. Merci beaucoup.